That's the sound of an owl that lives right around us. One of our neighbors. But if you woke up in the middle of the night and you heard that, what kind of an owl is it?
Owl.
Yeah, what kind of an owl?
You know what kind?
What's the name of that kind of owl? It's the owl on our banner. What kind of an owl is that? Anybody?
Someone said it. You got it. Great horned owl.
Great, great. My name is Marcia Wilson. I'm here with my husband, Mark Wilson, and we are going to have some fun with owls here for the next 45 minutes or so. And first of all, we want to thank all of you for coming out on this beautiful evening. And we brought some of our owl team here, but one of our birds here is not an owl.
It's the mystery raptor. And when she comes out, we'll see if any of you recognize who it might be. She does have talents like an owl, but she's not an owl.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have a total of 16 birds. So we bring some to a program, and the rest are resting.
I think we just have another presenter joining us on stage here.
It's a great horned owl,
Yeah.
right? So part one of our three-part program is we're going to read Owl Babies. All of us are going to read it in a very special part. That's where you got to come in and help. But after we read this giant version of Owl Babies, I'll start to bring the owls out one by one or two by two. And then part three is a hooting lesson, because if you know what the owls sound like, since owls are pretty hard to see, aren't they? But if you recognize their voices, like that great horned owl, if you hear that and get to know it, you'll say, oh, that's the great horned owl, and you can call back to it, and you might get them to answer.
Or you could fly in.
Anybody ever tried that? Good. Did the owl answer? All right.
Have you hooted to an owl? No? Well, tonight you'll get the chance.
You will.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, Mark's going to be our book holder.
Okay.
And I just have to say, speaking of books, since we're at a library, this is Mark's very first book ever. It's a kid's book about owls.
It's just come out
Yeah.
the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it hasn't even hit the bookstores yet, so we're really excited about it. Afterwards, you're welcome to come up and give it a look. We do have a stack of them over here. They're less than $20. So, anyway, just wanted to express our excitement about his book. Once there were 3 baby owls, Sarah and Percy and Bill. They lived in a hole in the trunk of a tree with their owl mother. The hole had leaves and twigs and owl feathers in it. It was their house. One night, though, they woke up and their owl mother was gone. Where's Mommy? Asked Sarah. Oh my goodness, said Percy. I want my mommy, said Bill. He's the little guy down here, and he just does not understand why the mommy owl goes out every night and then comes back. So he's going to keep saying, I want my mommy. So when that comes around again, I'm going to point to you like this, and I want you to help me say, I want my mommy, said Bill. Okay, so let's just practice. Here we go. I want my mommy, said Bill. Okay.
That was pretty good, but I think we need to have a little more fun. What if we all said it with a whiny voice?
Oh.
Does anybody here know how to whine? Raise your hand if you know how to whine. Oh, thank you for being honest. Okay.
Right.
So when Marcia gives you the signal, give me your best whiny voice.
Okay. Here we go. I want my mommy, said Bill. Okay. Look, it's lots more fun. The baby owl sat and thought, since all owls think a lot. I think she's gone hunting, said Sarah. To get us our food, said Percy. I want my mommy, said Bill. Here he is, looking bewildered. But their owl mother didn't come. And so the baby owls came out of their house and sat on the tree and waited. See, they're holding wingtips to feel safe. Yeah. A big branch for Sarah, a small branch for Percy, and an old piece of ivy down there for Bill. She'll be back, said Sarah. Back soon, said Percy. I want my mommy, said Bill. Right on cue. Oh, but it was dark in the woods and they had to be brave, for things moved all around them. She'll bring us mice and things that are nice, said Sarah. I suppose so, said Percy. I want my mommy, said Bill. Well, they sat and they thought, since all owls think a lot. I think maybe we should all sit over on my branch, said Sarah. And so they did, all three together. Suppose she got lost, said Sarah. Or a fox got her, said Percy. I want my mommy, said Bill. And so the baby owls closed their owl eyes and wished their owl mother would come. And she came. She's making a big circuit. All right. Soft and silent, she swooped through the trees all the way back to Sarah and Percy and Bill. Mommy, Mommy, they cried, and they flapped and they danced and they bounced up and down on that branch. Who was the happiest of all to see her? Oh, little Billy almost jumped out of his feathers. Just kidding, they can't do that. But the mommy owl was glad to see them. Ooh, 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 ooh. What's all the fuss? Their owl mother asked. You knew I'd be back. Ooh. Sound familiar? Well, the baby owl sat and thought, since all owls think a lot. I knew it, said Sarah, and I knew it, said Percy. I love my mommy, said Bill. So of course she came back, bringing mice and things that are nice. Well, let's thank Mark for holding the book, not by clapping, but by flapping.
Oh, it was hard.
Was it heavy, Mark?
Oh, it was a heavy book.
Oh, yeah. Your arm, this is the second time, too, your arms must...
Oh, I know they're burning.
Let's meet the owls.
Okay.
All right, well, obviously, I'm not going to hold the owls with my bare hands because they have very sharp claws called talons, right. And so I've got special gloves. These are my dress gauntlets here with the tassels. And the owls are not our pets. We have to have a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service license from the federal government and different state licenses to have the birds that we have. And I can't let you touch or hold the owls. I'll get you nice and close. We're a nice small group here. I'll walk across the front and up the middle aisle. They're going to be attached to my belt, so they're not going to get away and fly around the room or land on your heads.
As much as you'd like that, right?
And then, why do we have these gray mats on the floor? What are they for? What do you think? In case the owl poops.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, it's not in case they poop, it's when they poop. They're gonna poop, I guarantee it. Yeah. And owl poop has a special name. It's called whitewash.
All right.
And so when you're in the woods looking for owls, you often are looking for owl whitewash on the ground because it's a good clue as to where they're sleeping during the day.
And the other clue we've already found from the first presentation. The other clue you're going to want to look for in the woods is owl pellets.
So these come out of the mouth. So about 12 hours after an owl eats, they cough up one of these.
Yeah.
How many have taken apart an owl pellet? How many of you have taken one apart?
Okay.
Okay, a few of you.
A lot of children do it in school or at camp.
And it has
or in Scouts.
kind of a little history here of what the owl ate. You can tear it apart and identify the bones and the fur and the feathers.
Right.
So pretty cool to do.
And that's how scientists learn what different owls eat, just by taking apart the pellets.
Okay, so we may want to hang on to that young tyke there, because once the owls are out, we don't want anybody getting poop on their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't bring the owl poop shampoo tonight.
No. But the first two owls we're going to look at happen to be the most common owl here in Wellesley, called the eastern screech owl. And they're hard to see because they're nocturnal. They're not out during the day, they're out at night. But they're pretty cute. These little owls are full grown, so they're not babies. And there's a fresh pellet.
Yeah, it's a little pellet, of course, because we feed the screech owls little mice. Yeah.
So that's, the screech owls come in two colors. They come in a gray, that bark colored gray, or this feisty, foxy brown. That was some radio interference.
It seems to happen in that spot.
Yeah. So, let's listen for a minute. The gray one has something to say. Let's listen. What's the matter? What's the matter? Are you cranky? Yeah? Did we wake you? Would you rather be asleep? Yeah. We woke her.
We've had a lot of screech owls in our 25 years of doing these programs, and this is the first one that's done this all the time.
So you won't hear that call in the
Right.
wild, but you will hear, potentially, like a little horse whinny.
Yeah, or a trill, but I can't trill, so we go. I need a volunteer to come up and help me with that call. How about young lady in the back? Come on
Come on
up.
up. Her hand shot right up.
Yes.
So you can approach slowly. Come on, right up. You're going to stand right in front of Marcia. All right, you turn around, face your audience. And what's your name?
Libby.
Libby. So if you don't mind, Libby, we're going to surround you with screech owls. Okay. And they are going to stare at you at some point here, Libby. So, Libby, have you ever heard one of these before? Okay, it's a fun, easy call to do.
Oh, don't touch. Don't
Yeah,
touch.
no, we got to keep him seated there. Okay, because
I know it's going to be hard.
he might get his hands in poop and stuff. So, Libby, Marcia will do the call and you can try it, okay? That's good.
All right.
Big wing flap for Libby.
Yeah.
That was really good. Nicely
Super.
done.
Yes,
So tonight when you go
thank you.
home, give that a try in your neighborhood or yard. See who answers you.
Yeah.
All right?
Thanks for coming up. So these owls are full grown. They're going to turn 5 years old, probably late April or May. And they hatched in captivity. That means they hatched around people. And they were part of a government study that was looking at West Nile virus. Right, Mark?
Yeah. The scientists were studying whether the parent owls could pass on disease resistance to the babies. And when the study ended, the scientists had 86 screech owls that needed a home. So we adopted all 86. No, I'm just kidding. We adopted 4, and these are 2 of the 4 that we adopted. Yeah, that's an owl. Owl, yeah.
I'm going to have you scooch back 5 feet or off the tarp. Yeah. There we go. Thank you.
So, how much do you think these screech owls weigh? Any guesses? What do you think in the aisle? What do you think? 15 to 20 pounds, really? 15 what? 15 to 10? Way too much. What do you think? Still way too much. 1 pound, still too much. Half a pound, still too much.
Libby knows. What do you think, Libby? How many?
Quarter.
A quarter of a pound.
Actually, Libby's the closest. They're about a third of a pound. You were pretty close. So you and Libby came the closest. But what are they covered with? Why don't they weigh much? What are birds covered with? Are they covered with feathers, right? But I heard someone say fur. Do birds have fur?
They'll come down.
No, birds don't
Your
have
neighborhood
fur.
here.
Mammals have fur. And also, why don't birds' bones weigh very much? You think they're solid or hollow? They're hollow. They have a lot of airspace in those bones, so they don't weigh much at all.
Now those, what we call ear tufts up on top of the head, are they really ears?
No.
No, what are they? They're just feathers,
careful.
right?
Hey. No, please don't rush the birds like that because they could get scared.
Yeah.
You got to move slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could have you maybe stay on that side, that would be great.
Okay.
I think we're having a meltdown on the corner there. Okay.
So, how about that mystery bird?
Yeah. Okay.
I know it's hard to take turns, but we all have to share.
Okay. What do you think? Is it an owl? Not an owl. Owls have big heads. This bird has a small head. So we know it's not an owl. It does have raptor talons, so it is a raptor. What do you think? What do you think? Pygmy falcon is an excellent guess. If you were in Asia, this would be a pygmy falcon. But in this country, it would be called an American Kestrel. American Kestrel. So, like I was in the Philippines a few years ago, and they have pygmy falcons there, and it looked very similar to this bird, but even smaller. But this is our smallest falcon in the United States. This is called American Kestrel. And look at her wings. Look how pointed they are. You can tell she's built to fly fast. So she does fly faster than an owl. She eats a lot of the same things though. She eats mice and things like dragonflies and grasshoppers. Moths? Well, maybe, although a screech owl would be more likely to eat a moth. Because screech owls come out at night when moths are flying around. Yeah. During the day, she'd be more likely to maybe get a butterfly. Yeah. Yeah. So this little kestrel here in Massachusetts has become quite uncommon. They used to be fairly common when I was a youngster. Now they're uncommon. We think that maybe development or pesticides or Cooper's hawks are maybe eating them, preying on them. That's why they've declined. How many people here have seen a kestrel in the wild? I see one hand. That's kind of sad. Yeah, they're not common. So the kestrel, she was being kept illegally as a pet, and someone probably took her out of the nest illegally, and she became imprinted on them. And then they turned the bird in anonymously at a wildlife clinic, and the first thing she did was sit on the rehabber's head when they took her out of the box. So that's not normal behavior for a wild bird. So she can't be released because she's imprinted on people. And see how calm she is?
Yeah.
She's calm around you. Although she doesn't like Marcia. You know, birds sometimes have favorites, and she loves me, doesn't like Marcia. But Marcia has an owl that despises me and loves her. So fair is fair, right?
And Mark, these things happen too.
Whitewash?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a large one.
From this little guy.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one screech owl's
That's
whitewash?
from the little red screech owl.
Boy, oh boy, that's like the biggest one I've ever seen.
Now that the water doesn't freeze, they drink water.
They drink a lot of water.
They love water.
So this bird can hover, which means she can flap her wings but not move. She stays in one place, and she looks down, waiting for a mouse or a dragonfly to move, and then she'll swoop down and grab it. And this bird can see ultraviolet light, unlike humans, which can't. So when mice are running around a field, they pee a lot. And guess what light is reflected off mouse pee? Ultraviolet light. Mm-hmm. So she makes her living, at times, following mouse pee trails. And she can find where the mice are. Yeah. Hey, you know, it's a way to make a living. It's like, what do you do for work? Oh, I follow pee trails of mice.
It helps me find my food.
That's right. All right, I'm going to tuck her back.
Okay.
And then I'll clean up that monster whitewash.
Kestrels come out during the daytime, like most other raptors. The owls come out at night, and of course they're nocturnal. So what do we call the daytime hunters? What's the word for the opposite of nocturnal? Anybody? Just call it out. Diurnal. Yeah, let's all say it. Diurnal. Right, so red-tailed hawks, ospreys, eagles, they're all diurnal. Kestrels. And the other thing I want to mention is that the kestrel and the screech owls nest and sleep in holes in trees. Now, we couldn't bring a hole in a tree in, so we brought in a birdhouse for screech owls, and it would also work for kestrels.
Easy to build. 6 pieces of wood. Put one of these up in your neighborhood or your yard, and your chances are good in this part of Massachusetts of getting screech owls nesting. Put it up in a hardwood tree, not a pine tree, up about 10 or 12 feet, and you might want to put up 2 because you know squirrels are probably going to move into one of them. Yeah, you can't avoid squirrels here in Eastern Mass. I looked out the other day at our bird feeders. We had 25 gray squirrels out there. It was what I call the squirrel circus. It was just amazing. I've never seen so many squirrels.
All right, we're going to move up in owl size now. And
in New England, this next owl is the most common if you look at all of New England. Here in Wellesley, it's probably number 2 or number 3 on the lineup. But in most of New England, this is the most common owl. It's called a barred owl. It's quite an impressive looking owl. And the barred owl gets its name from these horizontal bars across the upper chest. So right across here, those are bars. And the vertical feathers below that are stripes.
And below that
is whitewash, yeah.
And so, yeah, these are stripes, bars, and right now I've got my finger in the owl's left ear. And he's looking right over his back. So when you look at an owl's face, you'll see that there's a big circle of feathers around each eye. And we will do the hooting lesson in a second, but just wanted to point out where the ears are. So they're right behind their eyes. So the eyes and the ears work together when they're hunting. But I bet a lot of you have heard woo hoo 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 hoo. Anybody ever heard that? Camping or anywhere? Yeah.
Or in the yard or hiking? Yeah.
Okay, who would like to help? Who would like to help us practice that call?
Do we have a volunteer?
Right here.
Come on up. So you can stand right next to the owl. And what's your name?
Adeline.
Adeline?
Adeline.
Adeline? Okay. Have you ever heard of barred owl before?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is a fun call to do. Sometimes it's a little tricky to remember all the notes. So if you put words to it, it kind of sounds like, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? So Marcia will do it, and then you can try it, okay? Go ahead.
Very good. But
You're not done yet. Sometimes the owl drops the first 6 notes and just does the you-all. Like, woo-aw, nice and loud.
Ooh-ah.
Woo-aw.
Ooh-ah.
all
Excellent
right,
job.
nice
Big wing clap for
job.
Evelyn. Nice job. You can head back to your seat. Well done.
So this is one of the 2 big owls that we have here, and they've been having a hard winter. Remember all that snow with the ice on top of it that we had earlier in the winter? Well, it's really hard for them to punch through the snow to get their food. So maybe some of you have been seeing this owl out during the daytime, and it just means they're hungry.
Yeah.
This owl was accidentally hit by a car or a truck and broke his right wing.
So you see how it's drooping? He can't fly. And he went to rehab, but the rehab didn't work, and so he's permanently non-flighted. That's the bad news. The good news is he does have a girlfriend, and she can't fly either. She actually had to have a wing amputation. And we don't know, but we think he's 5 years old, and she, we know, is 21. So big age difference, but it doesn't matter.
With birds, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to have you girls sit right here, please.
There you go. Yeah, because if you're on the mat, you're in the poop zone.
Yeah, you don't want an owl to poop on your head.
Yeah, that wouldn't be pleasant. Yeah.
Now, if I show you how deep the feathers are on the barred owl and tell you that his body underneath all those feathers is about the size of my arm, how many pounds do you think he weighs?
Any guesses?
What do you think? 1.5 pounds, right on.
You nailed it,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, super.
Yeah. Now his girlfriend at home is bigger, 2 pounds. The females are bigger, stronger, and heavier. Why do you think the females would be bigger in owls and raptors?
Yeah, what's the advantage?
Well, what would be the advantage of that? What do you think? Easy to catch food for their babies? That's a good thought, but there's probably even a better reason than that. What does the female have to lay? Eggs. And it takes a lot of energy to create those eggs and lay them. And then who sits on the eggs and keeps them warm? The female. And then when the eggs hatch, who feeds the babies? The female. So I had a 4th grader say, well, what does the male do? And he actually brings food in and drops it off for the female to feed the babies. And when the babies get older, then the female goes out to hunt, like you mentioned. But when they're young, she doesn't let the male feed the babies. She does all the feeding. Yeah. So, barred owls are one of the first owls I remember hearing. We were camping in the White Mountains, and their call was echoing off the hills. We were camping at a pond, and boy, it was a wild call. There's another call that they do that you might hear that's absolutely scary. It sounds like something bad happening in the woods. It's almost like a scream. And a lot of people think they're hearing a fisher when they hear that call. It's actually the shriek of a barred owl. And when you hear it, like the hair on your neck will go up because it really sounds scary when you hear it. I can't imitate it, but you'll know when you hear it. It's absolutely like, whoa, what's happening back in the woods? It sounds like murder in the woods. It really does. But they're not a scary owl when you get to know them. They're quite gentle. Often they'll sit there and look at you if you see one in the woods. And when they have babies during the spring, they're often out hunting during the day because it's a lot of work to feed all those babies. Any other questions as we're flying along here? Yes? Can they really turn their heads all around? The answer is yes, but there's an asterisk. It depends where you start measuring from. So they cannot do a 360 from front and center. But let's pretend an owl turns its head this way, 220 degrees, and if you stop measuring from here, they can go 220 to the front and then 220 to the other direction for a 440. So more than a circle, but not from the front. You got to measure from the extremes of where they can turn. Now the way they accomplish that is they have extra neck bones. So you and I have 7, they have 14. But you notice their eyes don't move. They can't roll their eyes. Their eyes are locked in place. So over the years, they've compensated through evolution to turn their whole head. Yeah?
Can they look up if their eyes are stuck in the same spot?
They can't look up unless they turn their whole head. So they can't roll. You know how you roll your eyes up like that? They can't do that.
Okay, let's have you quiet as mice.
So let's watch her, what she's going to do.
This is a barn owl.
Let's watch her. She's going to start to do a little dance here.
Let's all greet her.
Can you all do it? Can you all do it?
So do they eat mice?
They do eat mice.
Is that what you feed them?
Yes, we feed them mice. We buy our mice, though.
We have big freezers full of mice.
Yeah.
Don't
We
you?
buy farm-raised mice. Free-range vegan mice.
So she's rocking her head back and forth to help herself hear and triangulate. And she's a beautiful owl. They're not found this far north normally because it's just too cold. And they don't hoot, they hiss. They go shh. Try that.
And they also screech and scream. So if you go to a cave or an old barn and you hear something screaming at you, hopefully it's a barn owl. Yeah. Now, a lot of people get this bird confused with the barred owl because if you say it quickly, it sounds similar. So this one was B-A-R-R-E-D. That one's B-A-R-N, barn owl. And this owl's found around the world, every continent except Antarctica, you can find barn owls. One of my favorite barn owl
Coming through.
sightings, 2 years ago when I was working on the book, I was out in Napa Valley in California,
Oh, and that's why.
and I was hanging out in a vineyard that was an organic vineyard, and the way that the farmers control pests is they put up boxes for barn owls, and the barn owl families eat all the gophers and mice and rats that plague the farmers. And so if you're enjoying an organic wine from California, you have barn owls to thank. And I was standing in this vineyard one night under a new moon, and there must have been 20 barn owls flying over the vineyard, hunting and squealing and screaming and hissing. And it was just a beautiful primeval scene. And it is one of the most beautiful owls, I believe. It's really pretty.
You know, that is one of the most important ways you can help all wildlife is don't put out mouse poison. Don't put out decon, because the mouse doesn't die right away. And they might go outside and they still have the poison inside them. And an owl might come along, or a fox, and eat that mouse, and where does the poison go? Into the owl or the fox, right? So, and a lot of birds of prey, especially that are brought into wildlife centers, are showing high levels of rodenticides. That's rodent poison, rat poison, and mouse poison.
So
just
you're
use
wondering
a
how to
mouse
get rid of
trap.
a mouse. We use snap traps, good old-fashioned mouse traps. They kill the rodent right away. You don't poison anybody. You could live trap the mouse, and then you bring the mouse over to your neighbor's yard and let it go, but I don't recommend that method. So we don't feed wild mice because we never know if they've been poisoned. And that's why we buy our mice. We spend $1,000 a month on mice. And, you know, good food's expensive. But, you know, they're healthy. They live a good diet. They have a good life, have a good diet, and they're lucky owls. This bird hatched in a zoo. Is that what you're going to mention, Marcia?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, and you've got friends right behind you there, so don't back up. So they're imprinted on people. So we adopted both she and her brother. And she's looking to go back in her box. But the best place to see barn owls in Massachusetts would be on Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. So let's see, 2014, 2015, we had a really tough winter. You might remember it. And on the vineyard, it was even tougher than here. And they started the winter with 30 pairs, give or take, of barn owls. And by the end of the winter on the vineyard, 1 pair was left. All the others perished. They're rebuilding, though. And I just learned 2 weeks ago that at Felix Neck Wildlife Sanctuary, a pair of barn owls are nesting in the cupola again after 5 years being absent. So, if you want to get out there, that's a good place to see them in the wild. All right, here's another big owl you can see right here in Wellesley, or this area. A gray horned owl. Now, he's having a little trouble balancing. He's got some arthritis in his feet. But it's a call that's well worth learning. How does it go, Marcia?
Well, it's a 4-note voice. It goes whoo, 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 whoo. Or sometimes it's a little higher. Whoo, 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 whoo. So why don't we have this side of the room do the low voice? I'll do it and then you can do it. And over here you can do the high voice. So you might hear whoo, 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 whoo. Go ahead. And then back in the woods, you might hear a higher one. Whoo, 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 whoo. Go ahead. And then maybe the lower one might answer. Whoo, 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 whoo. Excellent. Okay. And great horned owl babies are hatching now. They're the first birds in New England to nest. They're really tough. They're hardy.
So they lay their eggs in February, and now they're hatching mid-March onward. They're hatching, and they like to use big stick nests. So if you know of any big stick nests in the woods, use your binoculars to check them out. You might see some ear tufts sticking up out of that nest.
Yeah, and by the way, owls do not build their own nests. They take over big stick nests that somebody else built the year before.
Like a hawk, or an
Right.
osprey, or a great blue heron.
Right, so
nest.
they don't steal the nest. They just,
Reuse it.
because they lay their eggs so early, they've got their choice of stick nests.
They reuse it, yep.
Yep, this owl is 13 years old, and did I already say he fell out of his nest?
Nope,
Sorry.
you did.
He fell out of his nest in the Blue Hills Reservation. One of the rangers found him and brought
This
him.
was, we should add, this is as a baby he fell out of his nest. He was only a few weeks old. And when he hit the ground, he broke his right wing. And normally that's the end of the story. He would have died, but that's what Marcia was saying. The ranger found him. And what happened next, Marcia?
Well, he brought him to Trailside Museum. They tried to fix the wing. They waited for it to heal. And it didn't really heal well enough for him to be able to fly well. So that's when we got a call from Trailside, and we got to adopt him, and that was 13 years ago. But for great horned owls, that's really not very old, because they can live into their 30s or 40s. When I was growing up, my mom did live bird programs, somewhat like this, and she had a great horned owl that lived to 43 years old. And that's who taught me how to hoot. But they're a handsome owl, and beautiful big ear tufts, which have, well, they might have something to do with hearing. We're just speculating here, but sounds that come from behind the owl might get directed down into the ears. See how
Yeah, they bounce off the back of the ear tuft.
Yeah, the ear
It's
tufts.
possible. It's kind of a concave shape if you look at it from behind. And great horned owls are found in every state except Hawaii. And they're found up into the tree line in Canada, in Alaska, and then they're found in Central and South America. So it's one of our more widely distributed owls. And you can see them in California. They're kind of gray out there. If you go up into the Arctic or subarctic, they're almost black and white, like a snowy owl. So they vary quite a bit.
Do you like him? Mark, look.
Yeah.
Why is his eye like this?
I think we hit the jackpot.
Why is his eye like this?
Yeah, his left eye is closing.
For some reason, he can't blink his upper eyelid. It's stuck. Normally, owls use their upper eyelids to blink, their lower eyelid to sleep, and then their third eyelid comes across to keep the eye clean. But his upper eyelid is stuck in the upper position, and we don't know why. He went to 3 different ophthalmologists, and they don't know what's going on. So he's had a lot of medical attention, but we can't figure it out. So we've given him a good home, and he's going to get his 3 mice tonight when he goes home. And
Now, you probably figured out that these owls do not live in these travel boxes. They're just in them for a few hours. And so you can think of us when we get home in a couple of hours. We'll have to feed all the owls. And I'll walk them back down to their big outdoor bird cages called aviaries.
And I'll come out with a tray of 35 mice.
Yeah, and the warm mice.
We warm them up. Yeah, they're not live mice, but they come to us frozen. And if we forget to thaw them, we'll put them in the microwave, warm them up. You don't want to leave them in too long, though, because what happens then? They blow up, yeah.
Oh, Mark.
Oh, that's a dandy
Yeah,
pellet.
it is a dandy. It's still shining.
You want a close-up of this? Put that on Facebook. You get a lot of likes. That'll go viral.
What's it covered with?
Mucus.
Fresh mucus.
Yeah, he's
It
framing it
helps it come
carefully.
up the throat.
What? Oh my.
So here's a Eurasian eagle owl. So they're found in Europe and Asia. And if I can borrow Mark's microphone, he'll probably hoot for us. Listen, listen. Ooh. Ooh. This is his time of night. Okay, one more. Listen.
Listen.
Ooh. So this is an owl that says "hoo," and they are a close relative of the great horned owl. But what color eyes did the great horned owl have?
Yellow.
Yellow. What color are his eyes? Orange, right. And he looks subtly different. His ear tufts are tall and skinny. And he is about to turn 17 years old. He hatched in captivity. And he could live into his 50s or 60s. So make sure the people behind you can see. Okay? You've got people behind you.
Why does
Thank
it
you.
have things on their legs?
Why do they have these straps here? So he can't fly off my hand because I hold them between my fingers.
That's how she holds on to the owl.
Yeah. What are the blue things, Mark?
Oh, those are his ID bracelets.
Yeah.
So that has a phone number on it. And if you get lost, it would tell you the phone number to call to return him. Yeah. So it's his ID bracelet. So this owl, this type of owl in the wild can take down some large prey.
I like that.
They could take down a fawn, which is a baby deer. Could take down a badger, a hare, which is a rabbit that weighs 8 or 10 pounds. So they can take down some large prey. Look at the size of his feet, big talons. A big owl like this can squeeze stronger than a human. A strong human that has trained can squeeze with about 140 pounds pressure per square inch. A strong owl like this can go 400 or 500 pounds pressure per square inch. And if you measure the pressure at the tip of the talon, it might be 2,000 or 3,000 pounds pressure per square inch. So they have incredibly strong feet. That's why Marcia's wearing a triple leather glove.
That's been heavily used.
You can see it's been kind of roughed up by all those talons sitting on it. Anybody here? Has anybody here ever seen an eagle owl in Europe or Asia? Okay, because if you go over to as far west as Portugal, as far north as Finland or Russia, and then down into China, you could see this owl. India, and there's other species of it
Indonesia.
in Africa. There's other types of
And
eagle owls.
India.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's 16 kinds of eagle owls, but they're all basically shaped like this.
yeah. And so he is totally imprinted on people. So tonight, when I go in to feed him, he'll greet me, and since he's so imprinted on people, he'll go into courtship. And when I go in the cage, he'll go like this to me. He'll go, hoo hoo hoo, hoo hoo hoo. He's asking me if I'm available, and he'll usually fly to my head, and we'll leave it at that since this is a family program. But yeah. So he's very comfortable around people.
What's his disability? He is imprinted on people instead of his own kind. So he's never lived in the wild, and he's never been taught by his own kind, out of sight of humans, how to hunt. So that's why captive breeding projects like the Peregrine Project or the Whooping Crane Project, they don't allow those baby birds to see people. So they use puppets that look like the adults to feed them.
So they don't imprint.
So they imprint on their species.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't imprint on people.
He doesn't have any trouble eating, of course, but yeah, he does not.
But he would like to nest with a human. Yeah.
He makes little scrapes.
Yeah.
And he goes down.
He keeps hoping that we're going to go in and lay an egg or something.
He hatched in captivity with another educator that has his parents. Yeah.
How much do you think he weighs? What do you think?
He's
That's
having
a good
pretty
guess. He's
time.
4.5. We have a female at home. Guess what she weighs? She weighs 10. So she's more than double his weight. So big difference in size. Big difference in size.
All right. Why don't we take 2 more questions if there are any?
Okay. Yes, right here in the aisle.
How old is he?
He is about to turn 17 on April 11th.
Mm-hmm.
April 11th. And your question will be our last.
How long can an owl live?
Well, the eagle owl, the oldest one I know of, was 61 years old at a zoo in Germany. And that, I think, is the oldest record of any type of owl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eagle owl.
Yeah. So if he lives to be 61, I'll be long gone. Yeah, he'll outlive me. Because I'm 60 now.
We have long-term plans.
He's only 17, so you can do the math. I mean, I would be pretty... I don't think I'm going to make it over 100, so...
Well, we'll see about that.
We'll see, yeah.
But I want to thank you all for coming out. What are you going to do now if you hear an owl? Hoot back. Great. And spring is the best time to hear owls and see them. So go to it and come on up and give the books a look.
We got a few for sale if you're interested, and we'll answer more questions if you have them.
And they are $19.95. We take cash, check or charge. So
Thanks for coming out on a beautiful evening, and go home and hoot.
thank
That's
you.
your assignment. Yeah.
And you can come down and look at the pellets too. Look but don't touch.
They're $19.95.